Seeing none, I'll call on the honourable member for Calgary-Mountain View.
Much, Madam Speaker. Pleased to rise and speak to Bill 10, Fiscal Statutes Amendment Act 2016. Some concerns, obviously some good things in this bill, but like all omnibus bills, it raises real questions about the difficulties an opposition party would have in supporting one part and not the other. You have to reject the whole bill if you reject anything in the omnibus. So I think it's unfortunate they've combined the removal of the debt cap from issues around the Alberta Centennial Education Savings Plan, the Corporate Tax Act, the Personal Income Tax Act, the Financial Administration Act, the Fiscal Planning and Transparency Act, and the Fuel Tax Act. Makes it very difficult to vote in a fashion that would discriminate between some of the things, most of which I can support, given our financial situation, and some which I can't. Most significantly, the bill repeals the provincial debt cap, which the government has originally set at 15% and does not establish a new cap. Thirdly, under the Fiscal Transparency and under the Financial Administration Act, it specifically exempts the government from having to table any loan agreement which involves a loan to an individual of less than $500,000. Where's that coming from? Why would we be less transparent than in the past about loans to individuals of less than $500,000? I don't get that. I'm looking for some answers on that one, and I'll waive judgment on that until I hear more. Some of the areas that have been alluded to before, the Education Savings Plan Act, which restricts eligibility for the Education Savings Plan grants, or RESPs, to children born between January 1st, 2005 and March 31st, 2015, and repeals the Alberta Centennial Education Savings Plan Act effective July of this year. The winding down of this savings plan was actually started by the PC administration before they left office. So the government has opted not to reverse that decision. I understand we're in difficult financial times. Under the Alberta Corporate Tax Act, this provides greater clarity around Alberta's calculation of corporate taxable income, which parallels the federal calculation. And that's a reasonable thing to do, try and harmonize with what we're doing at the federal level. Under the Personal Income Tax Act, it decreases the dividend tax credit rate for non-eligible dividends from 3.08% to 2.2% in 2017. The government is keeping more money for itself by making the dividend tax credit less generous. I understand that. I can accept that. But again, under the Financial Administration Act, which requires the government to table before the House the particulars of any loan agreement it enters into or shares of any capital stock in a corporation that it acquires, it specifically exempts the government from having to table any loan agreement which involves a loan to an individual of less than $500,000. Explain why you would want to be less transparent than in the past. I don't get that. The big issue, of course, which has been so much discussed this morning, is repealing the provincial debt cap. It looks like we don't want to be disciplined about our borrowing. On the face of it, it looks, at least without putting another debt cap in place, it looks like we don't support fiscal discipline and putting limits. I can understand that these are extraordinary times, and it does mean that extraordinary measures are necessary. It doesn't mean that we can simply ignore guidelines, limits, caps. So in summary, Madam Speaker, this omnibus bill contains many non-controversial amendments focused on improving clarity and consistency, and I'd be more than happy to support these if they were packaged together in a separate bill. However, as the bill also includes amendments to the Fiscal Planning and Transparency Act that will allow the province to spiral into higher and higher debt, I cannot offer my support. Without a debt cap, how can Albertans have confidence that the government isn't dooming an entire generation into a black hole? What if oil prices remain low and are the new norm? There's a huge gap between government spending and revenues that can't be filled by wishful thinking. In this regard, the member from Elbow indicated there are some ways to show much more commitment to reducing our expenses on the government side, and I, for one, would be willing to take a 5% cut. I think many in our position would be. I think many in the public service would be willing to take a 5% cut. Not only would it be an important symbolic gesture, it would actually start to move us towards what I think demonstrates a personal commitment as well as a government commitment to bearing some of the burdens of this downturn. Not only does the bill contain nothing in the way of a debt cap, it also does not offer a debt repayment plan, and that's been alluded to before. If the province is not going to cap its borrowing, it should at least have a plan for paying off the debt. We need to have some assurances, whether it's through bonds or fees or new rental arrangements, user fees. What exactly are the areas that we should be considering in trying to recoup our lost revenue? And have an adult conversation about how much debt we're prepared to pass on to the next generation. I believe that my generation, the baby boomers, have not been paying their way for the last 30 years. We have left a tremendous amount of social, economic, and environmental debt to the next generation. Let's not add unnecessarily. Let's not continue to pass on this huge debt to future generations. We need to start paying more of our way as we go. I'm also somewhat concerned that the proposed amendment that aims to exempt the government from having to table before this House any loan agreements which involve a loan to an individual of less than $500,000. We need more clarity around that, and I hope the Minister will provide some of that. Those are my remarks. Thanks, Madam Speaker.